This video is about a great songwriter, Little Richard, who was one of the first crossover acts in the mid-50s and very influential to a number of artists, including the Rolling Stones and others. At the time in the 50s, when Black artists were recording, the amount of money that they were able to negotiate was a pittance and was generally a fraction, a third or less of what a white artist would get for the same or similar songs. Richard Penniman, also known as the flamboyant Little Richard, penned three great songs that have had a continuing influence and success even to today. The three songs that he's most famous for are Tutti Frutti, Long Call Sally, Bama Lama Bama Lou. The original contract that Little Richard signed was something that, in retrospect, as he was doing magazine interviews, he regretted the fact that he was illiterate and that the record companies were able to take such advantage of him. Tutti Frutti was sold to Specialty Records for $50 plus a half cent for each record sold. Well, you can run the math, and even though the song earned millions, he received 50,000. When Little Richard didn't receive anything on his songs, he sued the company that he had given the royalties to in 1959, claiming that he hadn't received any money and looking for an accounting. And when we think of rock and roll songwriters now, we now know that Keith Richards is worth over $500 million. We know that Mick Jagger's is worth over $500 million, Paul McCartney, others, similar kinds of numbers. But that wasn't the case in 1959. The Superior Court suit in 1959 on those three songs was settled for a fixed fee of $11,000 and an agreement to waive right to royalties to Long Tall Sally, Tutti Frutti, Bama Lama, Bama Lou. Subsequently, Little Richards filed a lawsuit in federal court in 1984 seeking $115 million for the songs that he claimed he was not being paid fairly for. This particular story of a artist not particularly educated signing away record rights and not cashing in on the value of the music that they wrote would normally end in poverty and a forgotten individual in the scrap heap of one-hit wonders or rock and roll. This particular story doesn't end quite the same way. In fact, Little Richard was a very active performer up through and including the last years of his life. And he actually wound up dying with an estate worth $40 million. Now, the number could have been much, much higher. But what happened was Michael Jackson, who was an aggressive purchaser of song rights, purchased the entire catalog for Little Richard and gifted it back to Little Richard. Whatever else you think of Michael Jackson, that was a noble gesture. And the heirs of Little Richard, including his siblings and his son, had something of a sizable estate. But that isn't how it usually went down in rock and roll and the law.